Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. This week we hear from Chloe Adams, CEO at The Art Movement, which brings art into the workplace, whether that be through art on the walls or art classes for your teams. Chloe is passionate about that connection between creativity and well-being, and has combined her love of both art and business to form a company that has a profound impact on its clients. Amongst other things in this episode, Chloe talks about the incredible benefits that art has for our mental health, as well as our motivation. She refers to a fascinating study which proves that art in an office reduces stress and significantly increases productivity, and also reveals the wonderful bonding experience that group art classes can have on both business owner and their teams. It's a wide-ranging and fantastic conversation with so many interesting elements and insights. I guarantee you'll learn a few new things along the way, and I hope you're inspired by this conversation as I was. Welcome, Chloe, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you for having me, Warren. I'm very pleased to be here.
Really looking forward to our conversation today. We're going to talk about art and the benefits it can have in the workplace, as well as, Chloe, find out a little bit about you and your journey. So I suppose we should just start with a little bit about the organisations, the businesses you run, including the Art Movement. So just for our listeners, do you want to give us a bit of a background about what the Art Movement is? There's the Little Van Gogh as well, and Connected by Art. So there's three kind of businesses, organisations that you head up. So tell our listeners a little about them, Chloe.
Well, everything stems from the premise, I think, that art, or I believe very passionately that art should be accessible to everybody. That matters a lot to me, and I feel that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily choose to go to a gallery or wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable in those spaces. So everything we do involves bringing art to people in the workplace, making art accessible to people in the workplace, elevating life experience, enhancing well-being through the power of art. Everything kind of stems from that. And we're also very interested in supporting emerging artists in the process. So the Art Movement is an art consultancy that works specifically with corporates and companies and businesses, bringing art into the workplace in lots and lots of different ways. So one of the ways that we do that is through the Little Van Gogh network. Little Van Gogh is a concept that started in Belgium, in Brussels, almost 26 years ago.
Okay.
It's a touring art exhibition concept. So every 2 months we curate an art exhibition in your workplace, and it changes, and you get to discover and learn about lots of new emerging artists. It's a fantastic platform really to get people engaged in art, people who wouldn't necessarily, as I was saying before, choose to go to a gallery. In the comfort of your office, the art is changing all the time. You're able to discover lots of work by different artists, purchase work if you want to. So that's a brilliant way and a very democratic way of getting art into the workplace, because we're all so different, aren't we? So just having that change means that the work is always engaging. It's always something to talk about. And over the course of time, people get to understand what it is that they like, maybe what it is they don't like. So that's Little Van Gogh. And that's a big network, a European network that we head up the UK part of the network. But there is a Little Van Gogh in Germany, one in France, one in Holland, and Belgium. And there's about 7,000 pieces of work moving around that network.
Just moves around that network.
All the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I'm very proud of the work we do with Little Van Gogh. The Art Movement itself does all sorts of things. We do graduate art programs, whereby we help companies to support artists just in that first year out of university. Unfortunately, university doesn't always prepare artists for the business element that comes with being an artist. It's actually quite an entrepreneurial endeavour, being an artist. And often people can come out of university brilliant artists, great ideas, but have very little clue how to forge a career out of their art. So we support artists in that first year where they're quite vulnerable to changing direction, support them with business skills, curate exhibitions out of their degree shows, and run programs in that way.
Fantastic.
Which are brilliant. We also manage corporate art collections. We have a facility, a storage facility, a climate-controlled facility where we look after people's collections. And we have launched Connected, which is that third element you were talking about, which are online art classes for employees. That came out of COVID and just trying to support with mental well-being.
Okay, we're definitely going to cover that off during the course of our conversation. But that's a really broad church of services, ideas, and has that obviously come together over a period of time for you, Chloe? Is it, where did it all stem from? Did you do an arts degree? Were you one of those struggling artists trying to find their way? Where did your journey start with it all?
So I went to art school for 1 year.
Okay.
And I struggled with that year. I felt like I love art and I love business as well. I nearly went and did a business degree, which I was ready to work. I was ready to not be in education anymore. Yeah. And I found that I loved being around art. I loved being around artists. But I just wanted to get on with the business of something. And I did come away with this feeling that art kind of felt like it wasn't for everyone. It felt very cliquey. And I wanted to find a way to bring art to more people and make it more accessible, The number of times that we'll hang art in a space, we've hung it all up in a building, and I'll grab someone and say, "Hey, what do you think of the new art?" And they'll go, I don't really know anything about art. And, clearly, I do not want to talk about how I feel about this piece of art. And I'll say to someone, "Well, look, do you love music?" And they'll say, yeah, I love music. I'll say, "Oh, yeah, I can tell you what I love, what I hate.
What genre music I like, the bands I'm into,
exactly.
Last gig I went to, all of that stuff. People just,
I've got it. And I'll say, do you know anything about music? Are you qualified in musical training, anything? Oh, no, God, no. And we feel entitled, don't we, to an opinion about certain things, certain forms of art. And there are others, I think, like visual art, which is much less accessible, and people feel very uncomfortable or not entitled to have an opinion or unqualified. And I really didn't like that about art.
Okay.
I wanted people to go, "I love it. I can't tell you why. But it just makes me feel a certain way." And that's good enough for me. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So did your year and then went straight into the art movement? Or?
Yeah.
Wow. So it was that kind of real focus of, right, I know the art degree is not for me, but I love art, I love business. How can I connect the two? Yeah. That's quite a journey and a leap, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we got involved initially with the Little Van Gogh Network. Okay. So that was a really good into that kind of field. That gave the
stable kind of, right, this is a business model that I can understand and follow, and then you've grown the kind of umbrella of other services from there.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
And is that a challenge for you? Is that, because there is so many other services there, Chloe, that kind of business piece, that entrepreneurial piece of there always being a shiny new thing to distract you and take you away from what the core business is? Is that a challenge that you face?
It is. It is a problem that I have. I like shiny new things, but I'm also really, really lucky that we have an incredible team of consultants, art technicians, curators who are really good at pulling this stuff together.
Okay.
Really good at bringing art into spaces, delivering stunning exhibitions, and I think you have to build a team that compensates for some of your lacks, you know.
To enable you to look around and see opportunity, but somebody's got to deal with day-to-day operations.
Exactly. So, for example, Kenny, our head of operations, just the most skilled builder of processes. He's absolutely phenomenal at that. He keeps in touch with all of our clients in the most methodical way, and that's not a skill set that I necessarily have, but he has it in spades. You know, our head of art, Luke, is incredible at connecting with artists, making sure they're always being brought on, and again, that gives me space and time to grow other parts of the business. So,
and it was there because that's a great place to be, isn't it? When you become self-aware and you know that you're playing to your strengths and others are covering your weaknesses. That, you know, that is the epitome of where all business owners, leaders should and do usually desire to be. But was that been a transition for you over a long period of time, or do you think you were always that self-aware?
Oh, no.
Right, that's an honest answer.
Oh, no. No. It's an ongoing journey, isn't it? All of it. And it's so cliche to say it's the journey and not the destination.
Yeah.
And I think that's what creativity and art teaches in spades. It's really not always about the outcome. I mean, I can be very goals orientated and very focused in that way, but often it's the process that gets you to the goal that's the most important bit, and actually achieving the thing in the end is like a 5-minute high and then on to the next thing, and the learning is in that process. So I've definitely it has been a big long road of failure is a difficult word because it sounds so tragic and terrible, but you just have to get loads of stuff wrong, don't you?
Yeah, and learn from it.
And it's just how we learn. And I think this idea of failure, this idea of it's just learning. I don't know why we make such a big deal about it.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting, isn't it? We've gone off a little tangent, but I think academia and business, like how academia teaches business, is, you know, very methodical, isn't it? But actually the reality of business, particularly owner-managed entrepreneurial business, is that you have an idea, you follow it, you take some action, it goes right, great, it doesn't go right, you pick yourself up, you learn from it, and you try something new. And there is this kind of disparity, isn't there, between academia and business and maybe the real world. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Oh, I agree with that completely. And I think that there's this misnomer around, especially now that we have social media, so much heightened sense of comparison, and that we think there's like the silver bullet way of achieving anything, and there should be this one thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to find that one thing that's going to make the business successful,
and it's going to be instant.
And that's going to be that. And I'm not going to make any mistakes along the way. And if I do make a mistake, then it's probably not worth continuing with any of this.
Yeah.
I'm a complete failure, and I'll just go and try something else. And it's like, well, actually, you just have to make friends with that and understand that you're going to cock up 85% of what you do, but that's going to teach you 100% of what you know. So, like, how else are you supposed to succeed in anything if you're not willing to look like a bit of a fool from time to time, mess things up, and just laugh at yourself for it? Because it should be fun. Like, it should be fun, shouldn't it?
It should. You should put a smile on your face. I mean, we live one life, don't we?
100%.
And we've got to enjoy it. And there are days when it isn't fun at all, and it's anything but you've got to be on a journey that puts a smile on your face.
Oh, you do. And I really say that to like our team, and it's we're going to work hard. We've got work to do, but we want to have a good time along the way, because, as you say, life is short, and we want to enjoy what we do. And when we enjoy what we do, the quality and the output of what we do is always so much better.
Definitely.
Always so much better.
And is that a challenge you're seeing now in the art with artists, perhaps coming out of university? Because we touch on that from a business perspective, but that journey of an artist, you read and you see, is one of the biggest struggles there is in any kind of professional career, isn't it? But do you think it's become even more challenging for young artists today because of social media, don't expect the typical artist journey and do expect that instant success?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, social media, for artists, because on the one hand, it has opened up just access to market. You can sell directly to your fans, to your audience. The sky's the limit, really. You can do so much more. It used to be, you have to find gallery representation. There are only so many galleries, and they're going to pick their stars, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you've got no other way of accessing your buyers. Whereas now you can set up a website, you can set up a shop, there is so much that you can do to market yourself.
Yeah.
But when we want to be an overnight success, which of course does not exist, it's heartbreaking when you put yourself out there and to begin with not much happens. It's really, really hard. And I think people just misunderstand how responsible you are these days for marketing yourself. Actually, even if you have representation, your gallery will still expect you to do a lot of your own self-promotion and promote yourself and your work, because it helps them in the end as well. So I think just taking responsibility for yourself as an artist is really important, but it's also very hard, because often what artists want to do is get on with the business of making work, and they don't want to be sending mailers or writing copy for a website or any of those sorts of things. They want to be making their work, and it takes them away from that. So having good representation can help with a lot of those issues, but I just think if university prepared artists a little bit more for that, it would be less of a surprise and therefore less of a disappointment.
And more would succeed as a result.
And more would succeed, yeah. And also understanding that a lot of artists will have what we call portfolio careers. So it's not just one avenue of income, it's multiple.
Okay.
And that requires a degree of entrepreneurial spirit to be able to juggle multiple streams of income. You might be teaching, you might be running workshops, you might be doing online stuff, plus your sales, plus gallery. It could be all sorts of things, but it's often not just one thing.
Yes.
And that's okay. That's successful. To have multiple streams of income as an artist is very, very normal. And I think that's helpful to know.
And have you had to change your business model as a result of the world changing?
Do you know, it was a funny. We had a funny 5 minutes, didn't we, with COVID and the couple of years that we've had. This buzzword pivoting, businesses pivoting all over the place. But I'm a painfully optimistic person. I really, really, really believe in glass half full thinking. And when COVID came along, it was terrifying for everyone for so many reasons, but there is always opportunity in dark moments. And it forced us to think, right, what can we do now to meet a new need? Because it's not like there was suddenly people didn't need stuff anymore. It's just suddenly very quickly people needed other stuff.
They needed something, they needed it differently or delivered it in a different way.
Exactly. So need didn't vanish, it just changed. And usually it changes at a slower pace, and it changed very quickly.
It
did. So I think if you have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, you just turn to meet that and think, okay, what we were doing and doing really well with yesterday, frustratingly is not working for a second. Okay, what can we move towards? And we set up our storage facility during lockdown. We set up a cataloguing business during lockdown, and we launched probably most successfully these online art classes through our connected creative development program. And so we felt that it was obvious people were having a really, really hard time at home, working from home, struggling with kids and being stuck indoors, and just high levels of fear. And we decided to launch, we did some photography competitions, we did some online sort of collaborative artworks with people, and actually we eventually ended up doing some online art classes, which really started to take off. We launched those with one of our best teachers, Jan Moffat. She's such a good teacher. She's really, really good at taking a seemingly tricky looking subject, a human face or an animal or something, and she can just break that down into manageable steps, which at the beginning you were thinking, no, there's no way in hell I can ever do this. And by the end of it, you're going, no, that's not bad, is it? You know, I've drawn a face. And the satisfaction that provides is priceless. Like, it's incredible what that can do to a person. And we just started to get this incredible feedback about these sessions, and it just sort of snowballed into its own business. And now here we are, not in lockdown anymore. It's still adding value. It's turned into also live events for companies. We've got individuals coming to the sessions.
So typically companies are coming along and they're putting their teams through the program. Does the team do it together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they get that shared learning, shared experience, that having fun together.
Exactly. And we do kind of galleries at the end so that people can see each other's work, and
wow.
It's one of the funnest and most satisfying things I've ever done. I spoke to somebody recently. I mean, we had an email come in and somebody said that they had reduced their antidepressants because of coming to the classes. And I then spoke to somebody who said that she actually hadn't committed suicide last year because of coming to art classes, and it had that level of benefit.
Wow.
And that completely blew me away. I was completely humbled by that, because I had thought, at best, this will be a distraction for people who had a love of art, who dropped those subjects at school or something, who want to try something new. You know, everyone was trying different new hobbies, baking sourdough bread or whatever. And actually, the impact that making art has on mental health is phenomenal. It's huge. And I just started looking into that as a result of getting this feedback from the sessions, and started realizing that actually making art reduces your cortisol levels massively.
It's that left side, right side of brain engagement, which a lot of us in occupations and businesses and professions and just don't engage the right side of our brain in the same creative way as we should as humans, do we?
Exactly. Yeah, and we don't often get into this state of flow, which is hugely important, you know, just to be present. And you hear... there's a snowboarder called Jeremy Jones who talks about the white zone, or it can be state of flow, or it can be mindfulness or being present, however you want to term that. It's that place where time is irrelevant. You are completely in the zone. You are not in the past, not in the future. And that just brings all your stress levels down. It engages that creative part of your soul, you know, that is looking to express itself, and it helps to move emotion through you. And I think that I had not realised how powerful that is, especially in the midst of a mental health crisis, which we are very much in at the moment.
Will be for some time.
Oh yeah, we've got some serious mending and healing to do, I think. Definitely. And art really helps with that.
So, I mean, that's an amazing realisation, and sort of congratulations to your team on, you know, putting that in place and seeing some of those benefits. They're the kind of benefits where the hair stands up on the back of your neck, and rightfully you're truly proud. But does that now mean that that's going to be an area of focus? Are you going to take that area of the business in a different direction, or are you just going to amplify it? You know, what's that realisation going to mean in terms of the art movement and connected by art and the business, I suppose?
Yeah, it's a big focus for us this year, a big focus for us, and we've designed an online platform that people can purchase membership through. They can access sort of tips and ways of developing themselves as artists, because I felt very strongly that Connected shouldn't be a program that's all about just having a nice hobby, which of course, if it is for people, is fine. But it's a serious program that really is developing people in their creative skill set. So if you want to become a better artist, but you just so happen to be an accountant, you know, or you just so happen to be somebody working in a recruitment firm, art is also for you, and it's okay for you to come and take that part of yourself seriously. And for you to develop that seriously. I think people have a really hard time taking their creative self seriously. We want, I'm not an artist.
Why do you think that is? Do you think we leave school and that gets suppressed? I mean, why do you think that is?
I think that, unfortunately, I mean, the number of adults I have spoken to who tell me stories about creative shame at school. Some teacher at school laughed at their picture. I was talking to a woman just the other day. She's in her 60s. She was telling me about something that happened to her when she was 10. She was at school. She'd painted a picture of an aeroplane, and her teacher had laughed at her picture in front of the whole class. And she is decades and decades and decades on, and she remembers that like it was yesterday.
Still a scar.
And she hasn't drawn since.
Wound. Yeah.
And she hasn't drawn since. And the trauma that has caused, the shame that's then connected to being creative, quashes your ability to express that. And that's happened to so many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just been the shame and the creativity have come together, and it's this nightmarish, horrible, toxic mess that means that people are terrified of judgment when it comes to drawing a picture. I've worked with chief executives of very well-known banks who have nervously shown their picture at the end of a session.
Oh, I think I did the same, actually, Chloe, if I'm honest.
And what's that? Why is it so scary?
Yeah, but yeah.
You know, you're public speaking, you're on camera, you're doing all these things. Yet if we say, could you please draw us a picture of a dog?
Yeah.
And would it be okay if we all saw this picture? And we promise to all be very nice about it. The cortisol, adrenaline experience that you have off the back of that is massive, you know.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I just sat here now thinking, is like, you know, as we proceed in life, we think all about our academic progress, don't we? We actually think about our nutrition and our kind of our physical kind of exercise and well-being, but we don't really think about how we tap into that element of creativity in our lives, do we?
Yeah, and it's vital. I mean, we are innately creative beings, you know, like that's what, and it doesn't just apply to drawing a picture.
No.
It applies to innovation in business. I mean, that drives business.
Absolutely.
We need teams to come up with better ways of doing things, new ideas. And if you stifle creativity by shaming people about when they come up with ideas, when they express themselves, then how are they going to innovate into the future? I mean, it's not going to be possible.
No.
You have to make space for people to fail.
Yeah,
to
back to that point, isn't it? To express themselves, learn, share
Exactly.
ideas, and not all of them will work, and accept that and not go through that shame process.
Yeah, and teach people and show people how to tap into that, because that's where everybody's best ideas will come from. That's where your best work will come from, when you're in that state of flow, in the zone, expressing your uniqueness through science, through maths, or whatever it might be. But you will get the best out of people when they are at their most creative.
Yeah.
And if you can show them that it's safe to do that, art is a wonderful way of doing that. If you surround people with art, they start talking about their ideas. What do you think about that painting? Oh, I don't like that. Why is that, John? Because I don't like the colour blue. Why don't you like the colour blue? Because when I was and then we're into a conversation that's personal, and we're into something that's not guarded, and people start connecting more. It's such a good lubricant for proper connection.
And
not
that's
this
where you'd
surface
say
stuff.
the well-being benefit comes of having art within the work environment, is it?
Massively.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think having art in your space, it does so much for people. You know, it actually makes people more productive. There's a psychologist called Dr. Craig Knight who did a really interesting study on productivity and art and plants in the workplace. So he had a series of spaces. One was a very bleak space with absolutely nothing in it. Got people to do some work in that. The next space, they put some art and plants into the space. And then they had a third space where they put art and plants in, but they let participants arrange them however they wanted to arrange them. Okay. And they found that the people who had art and plants and didn't have a choice on how it was arranged were 15% more productive than those who had nothing. And those who were able to arrange it as they wanted were 30% more productive.
That's incredible.
It really has an impact, especially when you give people some decision-making power around how that space looks and feels. It really ups productivity, which of course is an important part of business, and it reduces cortisol. You know, Westminster, University of Westminster did a study where they took people to go and look at art during their lunch break just for half an hour, and the people, especially with the highest levels of cortisol, stress hormone, had the biggest drops by the end of it. So we encourage people just to, you know, when we hang art in their space, to do 10 minutes of just pick a painting, stand in front of it for 10 minutes,
And just
not allowed to look away, just experience it.
okay.
Actually, some people find that very frustrating.
Really challenging, isn't it? I think I've got to stand here. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I suppose it's a form of meditation, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is, isn't it? Is you're just focusing on one thing, and yeah, that's got to help, isn't it?
I think it does, and it, you know, that it can all sound a bit hippie to people sometimes, but all it is, it's just quietening yourself down for a minute,
Yeah.
and it's a very helpful reset
Yeah.
in between any
Rebalancing
activity.
your nervous systems, and off you go again.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. And have you got any kind of case studies where you've seen that you've put art into an organisation, into a company, into a business, and you've seen these benefits become reality?
Oh, big time. Yeah. Well, we had a great one where very intentionally we worked with a big private bank in London, and their departments were split across 6 or 7 floors, and we put art into the spaces and then changed it very regularly. And changing the art meant that people moved between the floors, because they weren't moving between the floors. Departments weren't talking to each other. They were all very siloed. And they were looking for ways to get people to move around the building and actually start talking to each other.
Okay, and engage.
And engage with each other. So we started changing the art around, and people on the 3rd floor would go, I wonder what they've got on the 2nd floor today. Down we go. And they would go, oh, you've got, you know, these paintings. And it got people moving around the building in a way that they just wouldn't before.
Wow.
So that was good.
Fantastic. And I suppose, what have you learned about yourself since you've been on this journey? I think sort of about 2008, wasn't it? You started this whole kind of the movement, the journey. So what have you learned about yourself in that time, Chloe?
Oh, it's an ongoing project. This one, an ongoing project.
As it should be.
Yeah, I think the things that I enjoy about myself is that I've learned, you know, the stakes are, I'm not a brain surgeon. You know, if I get something wrong, nobody is going to die.
No.
And so I get to exist in a space where actually, if things do go wrong, it's not the end of the world,
No.
you know. And I've got quite good at picking myself up after you know, a bit of an experiment gone wrong, and that's okay. I've definitely learnt that I am very tenacious. I think I have a determination, which can sometimes see me through those ups and downs, you know.
It's that full part of being resilient, I suppose.
Yeah. And really to have fun. But I think I am not the most patient of people. I want things to happen quickly. And so I've had to learn to balance this striving for more, this need to progress and this feeling of moving forward, with really enjoying where I am and really having a good time where you are. And I think balancing those two things is challenging, but I think if you can get that right, it's kind of this perfect place to be.
It's really difficult.
It's really difficult.
Because if you've got that drive in you, and you've got the ideas and some creativity and that kind of the desire to do something better and to improve, then you're always looking for the next hurdle and the next challenge, aren't you? And sometimes just standing still in the moment you are and appreciating what you've got and who you are and what you've achieved to date isn't a natural instinct, is it? So
no, it's a habit. You have to get into it.
I was going to say, what techniques have you developed techniques, or do you think it's now just a mindset and a habit change that you brought to yourself? I
like little rituals. I really like that. I like having things that I'm quite action orientated. I like to. I'm a doer.
Okay.
Obsessive doer. So if I can do things that I know will put me back in my place of happy presence,
happy presence, I like that. Yeah.
Then I like to do those. So I do. I know a lot of people do these now. Gratitude lists, which are just listing off the things that I'm appreciating at the moment. That is incredibly helpful. It's very hard to feel resentful and grateful at the same time. I don't think you can. It's difficult to. I do. Morning pages is a brilliant one, which if anyone is looking to unblock any creative sort of stifled feelings, a woman called Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, which is a very old book. It's been around a long time, but it's a list of processes that you can use to help unblock any creative stuckness. So morning pages is basically you wake up in the morning, you've got your sheet of paper there, and before you speak to anyone or really do anything, you effectively vomit words onto a page. You just write whatever is in your brain. Sometimes it's just a bunch of squiggles and it's really nonsensical. You're not trying to form proper sentences here. You're literally just gotta walk the dog, washing up, park car. It could be anything. And you just do 2 or 3 pages of that every day, and it just has this kind of clearing out effect, which is absolutely brilliant. And you start to feel ideas coming more freely, more easily. So that's been great.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Oh, years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, that's a habit again. And
yeah. It's so useful. And I think often with habits, you think, oh, I don't need to do this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I'll stop meditating. I'll stop running now that I've... Yeah. And it's like, I don't think the idea is to stop doing it.
If it works for you.
If it works, keep doing it. It's part of your kind of maintenance program, isn't it? And I've also found flotation tanks.
Okay.
Brilliant. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those. I would highly recommend them. They look like if Apple made coffins.
You're not saying it to me, Chloe.
Like these lovely white pods. And when you open them up, they've got a couple of feet of... it's effectively tons of Epsom salts in there, dissolved. And you step into this very viscous liquid and you lie in it. And you're suspended in this liquid. And you shut the lid... So you're in the blackest of black space. Sometimes I don't know if my eyes are open or closed because it's so dark, and it's complete sensory deprivation. So you've got no sound either, other than the kind of twinkling of the water in there, and it's just black silence. And I know that sounds scary because you're also suspended.
So slightly petrified. I've written down here flotation tanks.
You just crossed it out now. But it just relaxes you completely. It feels like you are floating in space.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to notice what happens to you in there. I have yet to meet anybody who has panicked in one of them. I've never met anyone who's panicked in them.
Do you think claustrophobia would kick in?
You would think,
some
but
people,
it doesn't. Not anyone I have spoken to. And you can open the lid up, switch lights on, play music in there if you want to. Lots of options, but it's fantastic. Yeah, I really recommend them.
Wow. Okay, there you are, listeners. A tip from Chloe. Go try a flotation tank. And I might even do it myself and report back on what happens. So we've talked about resilience, we've talked about creativity, we've talked about your own journey. What's next for Chloe?
Cool. Well, I definitely see the business continuing to grow in those different directions that it's going in. It's really interesting to have taken art on the walls, art as sculpture, art as a physical object that we are looking at and interpreting, to people making their own. And that's been a really interesting step change. It's still very much bringing art onto the walls of businesses, and still making art accessible to people in those ways, but I think also really leveraging this idea that creativity exists in all of us, not just in the artist's work that we see on the walls. And I think given that change in my understanding, I have seen the benefits that come with people realising about themselves. So I'm very, very keen to develop that in whatever way comes, because I've seen that work so well, and the satisfaction I get from seeing people engage with that part of themselves is priceless.
Brilliant, fantastic. And the last question I ask all of the guests is around success. It's the Evolve to Succeed podcast. So, what's your personal definition of success, Chloe?
My personal definition of success is finding that balance between moving forward and progressing and loving where I am. And I'm not always, hot on the pulse with that. It's something that I'm always working on. But I do think that as humans, we need to progress. That's a really important part of feeling satisfied in life, isn't it? And feeling like your time on this planet is being well spent.
Feeling stifled or contained, whoever you are, that's not a great place to be, is it?
It's not. People really suffer in that place of feeling like they're not progressing. But I think people also suffer in the place of thinking, I'm just not progressing fast enough or enough, or where I am. I'm trying to get away from where I am. And when I get away from where I am, suddenly everything will be okay. Yeah. And it's like, I don't agree with that. I want to be happy where I am whilst also being excited about where I'm going. And that, I think, is my definition of success.
What a great definition of success. Chloe, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I wasn't sure where the conversation would go, but I've loved that whole conversation around creativity and what creativity means and what it can bring to an individual, the benefits it can bring, what benefits it can bring to a business. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Thank you for having me, Warren. It was a great pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvemembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.